Um, I'm gonna do a quick run through of some of the really, I think, sort of the basic core changes in the last year that have occurred, uh, just to give you a sense of it, and then I'll go ahead and I'll take some questions. And anybody has technical or just legal questions, I'm happy to discuss. Um, First, some overall trends. There's really one key trend here. I think most people know OpenAI, right? And I'm going to focus a little bit on them in Google. Uh, if you want just to find a bunch of different ways to use AI in your law practice, Greg Siskin did a great webinar, ran through 30 different ways to use it, a little over 30. And he also runs Visa Law AI, so he knows AI really well, both as a lawyer practitioner as well as someone who's developing products for folks. It's a great webinar. So I would suggest that if you just want like a list of stuff to check out, check his out. Big thing here though, I think AI has been around for 30, 40 years in different ways. But it was really ChatGPT that sort of, drove things. And that was really the big sort of difference. That was when 3.5 came out a few years ago. The biggest thing that's happened in the last year has been pricing. And it's not that, is 4.0, 4.0 turbo, 4.0 dash, whatever, better than 3.5. Sure, it's a bit better. But the bigger issue and the thing that's led to more companies and more usage and everything else has been the decrease in pricing. And the pricing has fallen over 95%, and it continues to fall. So just to give you an idea, this is just from last year, right? This was the pricing for using OpenAI's API. And this was a 32K tokens, which you can think of like 50 pages of text. So that's how much information I could have put into this, into a prompt. I could put 50 pages into a prompt and it would be able to ingest all that and give me some answers of it. But so 32K, not huge, like for a court case, maybe an average court case. But the pricing for doing inputs was $60 per million tokens, and to get output, the responses was $120 per million tokens. So, well, it's a lot of tokens. It's for $60, you can certainly do a lot, but a little bit harder to use if you're using it like ongoing discussions with lots of people and different things. It could get a little bit expensive. Not crazy expensive, but slightly. All right now. So using GPT-4o, and this is the one that came out a couple of weeks ago, 4 times as much, prompt space. Not that many people are going to use 128K, but certainly it's more, right? It's faster, it's better than the previous one from last fall. Price per million tokens in batch mode. So if you don't have to get back right away, it's going to be double this price. But in batch mode, which is if you're sort of doing ongoing operations on, say, summarizing cases or contracts or different briefs, $1.25. And then for output, 50. So that's a lot cheaper. Also from this right now, if you take GPT-4o mini, which is, not quite as good, a little bit faster, that is 7.5 cents per million tokens and 30 cents for output. It's almost as good as the normal 4o. So, again, same sort of prompt space. So it's night and day cheaper. So we've gone 32 to 128, and our pricing has fallen 96 to 99+%. And the pricing is going to continue to fall. And that's probably the biggest thing. This is for text, right? So text is pretty easy for LLM models, certainly for auto-completing off it. But the price it's almost like it's going to zero. And so I know when we were developing, and we've got a bunch of projects that we're working on and different things, and a bunch have been released, we didn't worry about the pricing because we knew the pricing was go down. I didn't quite expect it to go down quite this fast, but it has, and I believe it's going to continue to do it. And I'll explain a little bit what's sort of going on with why the pricing is going down. But I think for at least the next 3 to 5 years, the price will continue to drop quite fast. Google's also getting more aggressive. That's one of the reasons pricing's falling. Anthropic's out there. Their prices have also helped, sort of lower prices, keep the competition going. Amazon hosts a ton of different models, all of which, quite affordable now. They have Anthropic. They have, you want to use Meta's Llama, Amazon has hosted versions of that. Um, it's, it's really been sort of competition just driving everything, just driving the pricing down. And it's really people trying to grab market share right now. Nobody is making money among these folks. There is one company making money, but not these guys. NVIDIA is the one monopolist in the group. But here you got sort of one of these sort of different graphs. You can see how the prices relate to quality and speed, and there's these graphs get updated like every week. But you could just sort of take a look at it, and you're paying a lot more for not much extra quality right now, and you're paying a lot more for if you try to get to be super fast. Although it's not quite as it is quite as big of a deal, especially if you're doing stuff that requires batch processing, in which case speed's really not quite your issue. Of the major players for LLM, there's really just a few here. NVIDIA is the one that has the monopoly on stuff right now with their chips. Obviously, their chipset initially was made for graphics and gaming and randomizing a player on the screen or getting something to draw fast, sort of get you into the math. And then they did some crypto stuff, and now they're doing AI, and they're killing it. They basically have this market to themselves right now. It's not going to stay that way. Everybody else is making their own chips right now. So, Google's making chips, obviously AMD and Intel. Well, I think Intel is working on it. You have Google, right? You got Microsoft, and you have Amazon. The other three are really the big, cloud providers, and you've got to have a lot of, you need the ability to have a lot of processors and a lot of processing power. I mean, I guess I could put Oracle up here too, for that matter. But for the most part, these guys are just trying to capture market share. So with almost all of them, if you're starting something up, they'll give you a free time. They'll give you a free server space. They'll do things to try to get you into their systems, and the prices just keep going down. In general, if you're doing your own company for OpenAI, you're better off going through Microsoft. I think the support's better. It's better uptime, different things like that. But beyond the OpenAI, Microsoft sort of combo each of these. It's slightly different models. Google has their own, and Amazon's basically hosting everybody, just seeing what happens with a little bit more of a tie into Anthropic. All right. So given all that, just on the basic LLM stuff, to me, it's going to become like spell check. So you'll start using it like a spell checker. Like right now, I use it in Google Workspace for writing docs, but Microsoft has the ability to have it too. There's some pricing on it right now. That pricing will eventually just drop off. It's my guess. It'll just be included in the base price. It'll become something that you expect on it. So from a, sort of a core standpoint, with the pricing falling on the core LLM models, you sort of see two separate things. You see a ton of legal companies coming out, and I'll touch base on that just a little bit, mainly because it's very affordable. You can sort of get something up and going. The other thing that you're seeing is that they're moving beyond just sort of text and moving into things like graphics, right? This is OpenAI now. You can make your own graphic. You could do audio stuff. Here's an example that Jerry Goldman did for Brown v. Board, where he took some of the arguments and sort of tuned the voices to the actual speakers using their recorded voices, and got that up and running. There's Jerry up there. Again, just not the actual speakers speaking it, but it would sound just like they would have, getting all the nuances of their voices and things like that. And then video is probably the bigger one that'll be coming down. And graphics and video, a little bit more intensive certainly than text. But video, I think, will be the larger one that people will see. But any of this stuff, I mean, I don't think like when Trump was recorded, I think he would have just now said, "Hey, that was AI," right? And people have said, "Yeah, it's probably AI." And you can have AI stuff where people say all types of things now. There's been examples where teachers have faced disciplinary action because of fake recordings made by students, making them say things that are racist and stuff like that. Same thing with video, though. All different types of things. Graphics too. Can you really trust what you see anymore? It's getting more difficult. So it's, anyway, something to note, but it's sort of happening. All right, that's fine. So the basic pricing is drastically falling for the LLM stuff and AI in general, which is good. So you can write Word documents, get some help on it. what's sort of driving the law stuff? So the big thing with law is that right now, a lot of these folks looking for different business models and do things are looking for good free information that they can get and use. And what law has is pretty good stuff. It's well written for the most part. You sort of legal arguments are done in a systematic way, and it's public domain, so anyone can use it. And that's really, the ability to get a large corpus of data to start training models on has been something that's helped drive people's, it's helped drive people sort of using this, using law for LLM stuff. And then once they're using the legal stuff for their LLMs, then they start looking for legal applications. So you look at a lot of people starting these companies up, a lot of them had nothing to do with law, but they just needed to get a lot of data. And this was sort of how they sort of did it. So here's a New York Times article talking about how a lot of the old sort of web data is starting to disappear. But, the legal stuff's still there. So I'll just quickly run through the data sets. You have case law stuff. Here's an example of guys running summaries. We're writing summaries as well, using some AI and some editorial work. But cases tend to be stories with sort of logical reasoning and logical outcomes. And so it's great text for all types of things for training LLMs on. And because they're supposed to be systematic in a certain way, it's certainly the legal reasoning, you can start using it to autocomplete off of, or to, you can summarize it, you can sort of bring it into briefs to check different things. And the LLMs right now do a great job with summarization. So that part's really good. I would say where there's issues is I see some of these people using it to summarize cases, and they're summarizing the opinion and the dissent into one summary, and it mixes stuff up. So, you can summarize the opinion, don't summarize the dissent, or do that separately. But that's just not lawyers. So they don't quite get that there's two different things going on. But this stuff's working out well. A lot of people are doing it. I mean, tons of people. This is almost a basic research project now for PhD students or master's students at different universities doing work on LLMs. Codes and regs, again, tends to be pretty systematic. There's just a bunch of codes and regs open to everybody. And it's, good systematic stuff, and you can really start going in there and sort of playing with it. Try to, Cornell's done a lot, try looking at sort of the space for different words and definitions across different regulations and different code sections. There's a lot of different things you could do here where you can slowly bring in LLMs and start really sort of training it on this data to really try to figure out what means what. Because, words don't always mean the same thing in different codes. One section might mean something totally different in a different section of the code or regulation. And then court briefs. So court briefs, I think, court listener, if you need to get copies, best place to go. It's Read Out Law. It's like listener. The big thing here is that there's tons and tons of briefs available through this recap project, which is sort of paste or spelled backwards. But what happens is that once one person downloads the brief, everyone else has access to it for free, and you can get bulk downloads of this stuff. So you get a lot of data that you want to use. And there's a sort of interesting fair use opinion that came out a few years ago, where West or Thompson and Reed Elsevier were being sued by a lawyer who was basically claiming copyright on his brief, and they found it passed the fair use test. It was like 10 years ago or so. So these briefs right now are available. Now, at that point in time, one of the arguments was it's not really competing with the lawyer's work. If you were to use it to train LLM models and they didn't have, individuals didn't have to hire the lawyer, that might be different. I don't know. I think it would still be found under fair use. That said, I will tell you right now, if you go just download everything on Pacer, there's tons of copyright materials. I mean, you could there's like the first Superman comic. That's copyright litigation about the first Superman comic about the copyright of it. And it's actually included as an attachment with all the colors and everything. So, there's books as attachments. I'm not saying that everything filed in Pacer doesn't have copyright protection. But the briefs, at least at that level, seem to not have copyright protection. And certainly, if you could grab them and you can use them, you can sort of play with them a bit. And a lot of people are. And then business contracts. I think there's maybe 100 million different companies doing business contracts. Might be an exaggeration, but maybe 100. And these guys are all getting their contracts from the SEC filings. So if you wonder where they're getting stuff to autocomplete off of, it's coming from SEC. And SEC, you have to file material contracts whenever you do your filings. And, Law Insider, if you ever use them, they've got sort of a great database of it. We've got a database up now. But the ability to get these contracts and then sort of use those to create autocompletes off of, it's pretty good. You might want a skeleton structure first, but, if I'm doing an aviation lease, show me other aviation lease contracts. Don't show me ones that involve, commercial real estate leases. So by having all this data that's out there, you've just been able to produce, a sort of a lot of functionality that I think saves attorneys a lot of times when going through writing contracts. They're certainly looking for adjustments in contracts. So like those are really sort of the bigger data sets. Attorney general opinions. There's a lot of other government materials that are out there. But on the legal side, these are the ones that we've sort of seen the most work being done on it. Okay, that's fine. Let me quickly run through the accuracy of AI. I think everybody knows this guy. Used ChatGPT for cases he was citing. Not good. You got to check your work no matter what. There's probably the main three right now, the big three research companies, Thomson, Lexis, and VLEX that's out there, which has fast case as well as a huge international collection of stuff. They're all pretty good in terms of their AI as well. And Thomson bought Case Tech, so they sort of brought some of that stuff in. But all of them are strong, and they all have really good legal materials. So that's the other key thing to it. They're not like if you're using ChatGPT, you're just getting a mishmash of the web and law. It's all over the place. Here they can segment it out a little bit better, right? Maybe segment by the country, by the state, whatever they need to do. If they need to segment the autocompletes, and they could do more sort of back end. They could take your prompt and sort of make adjustments to it to make sure it's sort of focused on the stuff that should be focused on, depending what sort of data sets you're searching across with. So there's a lot more stuff that these guys do than your normal ChatGPT type of stuff. So these would be ones to check out. Certainly, they still make mistakes. They can still hallucinate. The scores here are meaningful because the Thomson ones were giving much longer answers. If you missed one little thing, you got everything wrong. So I won't look at the scoring system too much. But the main thing here is there's going to be hallucination still within even using sort of these legal tools for AI. And that's just, sort of what it's a combination of the LLMs themselves, but really it's a bit the data and how you deal with what the laws are, what federalism and things like that are. So I'll just do my normal thing. I asked ChatGPT, is same-sex marriage legal in Mississippi? And the answer was no. Even though the Supreme Court had ruled, I asked it again later. It's yes. Again, this is autocomplete. It's not, all LLMs are doing is trying to get the next sentence words out. You've got to add other stuff, other checks on it to sort of encourage it to get better answers, or, add prompts that say, and explain your reasoning. I'm a lawyer, I'm filing a brief. I need to know the result of this case. Please give me the result or get what the law is and explain how you got that. If you do little extra things to your prompts, you'll do pretty well in it. But this is somewhat a data issue. In this particular case, Mississippi code right now says same-sex marriage is not legal. So it's, codes are legislative intent documents. They're not the law. So you just got to realize that. And a lot of states will not update their laws or their codes when the Supreme Court rules. They just say, well, you know what? Maybe it'll rule the other way next week, which, it might. All right. So there's things like that. If you just grab like all the briefs, well, you'd get stuff like this, right? This is a real brief. I took out his social security number and a couple private stuff. But you can't just look at everything and think it's all equal, right? Like if I was doing an unfair competition claim or doing that type of litigation, maybe I'd want to look at other litigation involving unfair competition, right? You got to pick and choose, and you want to really take your data, whether it's cases or, codes a little bit and what they are, or briefs and things, and try to sort of do two things. One, get rid of some of this pro se stuff that's written in pencil. You don't need that. But try to get ones that are related to your case. I don't really need to know a lot about criminal stuff if I'm doing civil litigation, but, for the most part. So the different things like that. That's a little bit of tagging and then organizing your data and auto-completing off the correct sets. That stuff's starting to take place right now. And what the people are discovering is that they can use AI to do the overall classification of stuff, combined with the metadata that they have, like the court and different things like that. Get the classification on and start getting you pointing in the right direction so you're auto-completing off the correct sort of set of documents. You don't need to have everything on some of these items. Like for contracts. You don't need every contract that's an aviation lease. You just need a good set that you can sort of use for things like that. So this is, again, I'm just trying to show there's issues sometimes with the data. And a lot of people say, oh yeah, we got all the briefs, we're auto-completing all of it. And I go, well, it might be okay for most of it. And then, just normal data stuff like here's my dog. It always depends on what you're auto-completing off of. So like if you're auto-completing off Truth Social, this might be the way they fly the American flag, right? It's the data that's doing the autocomplete. Everybody thinks LLM's a model. Then you have data that you autocomplete off of. So your data needs to be good. And sometimes you need to sort of make sure you're looking at the correct data. A lot of law firms will bring in LLMs to their own systems, right? And they'll sort of index their own data and use that as a core data set. Otherwise, you're probably going to be relying on these legal providers to help you segment out and autocomplete off the data sets you want to complete autocomplete off of. So you got to be, you're sort of trusting them a bit, but most of these guys are just running a wrapper around one of these other models on some of their own data and some of the other background stuff for like basic sentence completion and grammar and stuff like that. So it's a little bit, where we are right now, you need to trust them a bit. And then you have stuff like, Chevron and, Chevron deference here. That case is gone. How would you sort of use it, autocomplete off previous briefs to write something today? It's totally different. So getting the federalism in and how you deal with courts and what they say, it's difficult. Law is trickier than just, writing music or a poem. So those types of things. All right. Last thing I'm going to say, that's on AI and regulation law practice. So this ABA, ethics opinion came out. ABA is, it's a volunteer organization. You can take it for what it is. It talks about using general AI. That's fine. It's or generative AI. That's fine to do. The big thing with this was that there was this sense here that, for example, if using generative AI tool enables a lawyer to complete tasks much more quickly than without the tool, it may be unreasonable under Rule 1.5 for the lawyer to charge the same flat fee when using the GAI tool as when not using it. A fee charged for which little or no work was performed is an unreasonable fee. I'll just say that if there's something that's going to happen with law where everything's going to fall behind and things aren't going to quite happen, it's going to be regulations like this. If I read this regulation, I'm a lawyer, I would say, well, first, I probably not pay attention to it, it's the ABA. But if my state took it up, I just wouldn't use the tool. And I would, if I needed the hours, I hadn't filled up my time. This is what you'll lead to people not using the technology that would help them. You just rely on people to use it, and then competition comes in, and then people will be more efficient. I mean, that's basic, I think, capitalistic market system. But this to me is ridiculous. And there's a lot of stuff that's happening right now with different regulations and things like that they're trying to make special things for AI, when realistically you're responsible for your work product, and you should be responsible for your work product. And that's pretty much should be it, whether you use Lexis and West to do research, or use the internet to do research, whether you use grammar spell checker that's legal specific, one of these legal writer helpers, you're responsible. And I don't think AI is really any different than that. You need to read through it and check stuff. And there's tools to check it. You can do RAG, you can check the citations and things, but I don't know. I just think the regulatory environment of law is like handicapping law itself. Much less the, capitalizing of law firms and things, and, which most other countries allow them to be more, more like service organizations. Some law firms are setting up their own operations, their own companies. And Wilson Sonsini certainly does this. They have AI tools in here. So if you want different contract analysis and different things like that, it's not crazy difficult for, a large law firm to put some engineers on it, so they can certainly do it for their own clients. And I think that to a large extent that has, in certain ways, made law firms, they try to use it for competitive advantages, but they've also makes them less likely sometimes to use other third-party services. So I think a lot of the companies that you've seen out there in the legal AI space, even when their revenue goes up, they haven't been able to sustain that revenue as a recurring revenue model because law firms start doing their own stuff, or they switch quickly. They switch around a bit. It's a little bit, it's revenue, it's not quite recurring revenue. The renewals haven't been quite as high, not necessarily because the products were bad, but because the competition keeps coming in. And with the LLMs going down price, everybody else's sort of wrapper or trading around the core LLM cost has also gone down. So the pricing competition's been coming down too, which, at some point, if you want to keep going, you gotta have an operation that makes money. At least you can raise money, I guess, forever. But at some point, you should be good to be at least have a window to profitability. And then I just point this out, like Stanford right now has a PhD in law degree. They're doing lots of stuff with law on it. I mean, other folks are. Google's got some stuff going on too. So I would expect more and more products and services to come out. I think that to a large extent, that lawyers themselves are a little bit handicapped in doing some of these companies and things just because of the regulatory stuff. You would be afraid of doing something, like having it be accused of offering legal services, even though it was, a code or something like that. And you don't want to get disbarred or sanctioned by the bar and have your hour rating go down or something. And it's again, it comes to the regulation stuff. But this stuff will happen. And I think you'll see at least anything to be written down, sort of base level expertise, the prices will start coming down. So anything that's sort of basic consulting, I think the people skills, negotiation, litigation, signing up clients, all that stuff will continue, but both on the simple sort of base level, general practitioner side, the middle part of America where, the lawyer for the town type of thing but even at the high level expertise, a lot of that will be, once the data's in place, you'll see a lot of that be accessible to lots of people. And it might even be accessible directly to non-lawyers or certainly to general counsel on that. So with that, I will stop. That was a quick run through, hopefully. I mean, it went too long, but let me just take questions from here and I'll sort of go there. Let me stop the share. Okay, there we go.
Thanks, Tim. So as I mentioned, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask him, you can go ahead and enter them through the Q&A button in the control panel at the bottom of your screen. It looks like we've already got a couple. Our first one is, can you list the AI tools that you mentioned in your slides another time and just kind of what they were for?
You mean I'll have to send out a list of it. But you got two separate sets. You have general ones that you can use just for your everyday writing. But there's a whole bunch. There's stuff that just helps with basic like legal writing, right? That just provided letters out to people, which gives you, we'll check yourself, not just like grammar, but check it for the legal content of it as well. You have other stuff for contracts, like Cura Systems. There's a bunch of them out there. There's a whole list. I'll put together a list and we can mail it out to people, or we'll put it online. We'll attach it to this part. And then Thomson Reuters and VLEX are probably the big three research companies right now. And there's a bunch of smaller ones. There's probably right now doing AI in one way or another, maybe 100 companies that are funded at different levels, and they're funded at over like 20 million or more, probably like 30 or 40. So, which increases their probability they'll be around. So what?
Awesome. Thank you. Our next question is, how should attorneys decide which AI tools to use for content generation or chatbots? Do we need to see the actual programming instructions to understand potential pitfalls?
I don't think you need to see the programming stuff, but you need to test it out for chatbot stuff. So I'll sort of break it in two separate sections. If I'm doing research in different sort of writing, if it's established company like Thomson or, Thomson West or Reed Elsevier Lexis or VLEX, then I want to try it out a bit, see what I like and don't like among those three. I think I give all three a shot, see what works, doesn't work, see how they sort of, you don't want something that generally autocompletes. You want to make sure they're sort of doing the correct tagging and things like that. For chatbots, I would open the chatbot and just test it and find an example of it and just try it out. The big thing with chatbots is that you don't want it to say the wrong thing, and you want it to shut down at some point if things start getting out of hand, just like you would have a person chatbot. But most of that stuff can be controlled, in terms of things. It's just, don't give legal advice. You got to reinforce things quite a bit, but it's not super tricky. I think chat stuff, like we've added chat for free, I think all that stuff will be going to zero. I think everybody will have that as part of their basic AI stuff, or for at least websites or other contact locations on the web.
Thank you. Our next question, how can a pro SE use AI? Most want you to be a lawyer. They meant like, how can someone who's representing themselves use AI? Sorry.
All right. So, pro se. I said, not pro SE. Okay. I should have spelled it out. So I think there'll be new tools being built for that. Right now, if I was a pro se, I'd be really hesitant to use AI because you probably only have access to like ChatGPT or Google's Gemini, or one of the ones that are based on that. I think Anthropic might have a way for you to use it, but whatever it is, if you don't have something that's legally specific and have some basic idea how to sort of check the results that come out, which, you should get if you're a lawyer, somewhat, but maybe not. Maybe you're a paralegal. Most paralegals might know it too, but it will lead you the wrong direction. The ability for OpenAI and ChatGPT or Google just to make things up, I mean, it happens all the time. So you can't trust it. To the extent that you ask it prompts, just ask, say, hey, I'm an attorney. I need to know this. What's the answer to this? Can you give me the reasoning for it? If you ask a bunch of other stuff around just the question, you'll tend to get better answers. That said, you still need to check that. So I would not at this point use it. I do think that new tools will be coming in place, though, especially for forms and certain administrative filings and certain proceedings where you're just trying to collect data and pass it on to a different government agency. That these things will help you fill those in ways that increase your probability of success in whatever you're applying for within the government or whatever you're filing. That doesn't mean that you should use it to make legal decisions right now and things like that. If you have a contract or something, some legal document, you could certainly run that through one of these programs and say 15. I would never have write a contract for it. Even if it gets most of it right, it might leave out a key clause. See, and all of a sudden, that turns out to matter a lot. So it's not the general there at all.
Awesome. Thank you. Our next question is, how can an attorney using generative AI be sure that it's not copying word for word from another document?
That part, I don't think you can do right now. All the different AIs right now are copying stuff. So it tends not to copy huge chunks. But there is a lot of copying going on. One way to do it would be to ask something twice and sort of get a modification, the differences between it. You could, if you're going into one of the sandboxes or APIs, you can actually change the amount of variability a bit on it. But there's no way to really know that. And we've seen like Perplexity, I think it was showing like Forbes articles for their, as the answers for their little snippets for search results and things. So that does happen. But that happens with all of them, that they will make copies of stuff directly. So no real good answer for that one right now.
Good to know to check, though. And then our next one, what is preventing AI from fully replacing legal experts, particularly in tasks like case summaries or other routine legal work?
Case summaries, I think that will happen most of the time. It's not perfect, but nor are writers perfect. But that those types of things, summarization of, briefs, different things like that. I think that it's my overall take, just in general, which is not agreed on by everybody, that most of the expertise, to the extent it's written down, there will be ways of using AI to get to it. The problem that you have is that right now things are still a little bit random. This is like the top of the first inning. We're nowhere in terms of stuff, and we're using this transformer type models. There's other models being looked at right now that might be better, right? We just sort of gone this direction right now. There's other ways of there's other ways of doing math. But I think most of it will, if it's written down or something, I think most of it there will be ways to pull that stuff out. And I think that experts, not just law, but medicine, anything, a lot of that will sort of go away a bit. Now, you might still want a lawyer to be the person that looks at the expert stuff that's coming in. Maybe I don't know antitrust law, but I know how to read the law stuff. I can sort of figure out what's real, and check stuff. But at least it gives me all the core ideas first but then I could go back and check it, which is a lot easier than having to be the expert that comes up with the ideas up front, which is, to a certain extent, contained within that person's mind. But yeah, I think eventually, I think it's all there. What won't go away though will be it just changed the job somewhat. You'll be more involved with the communication stuff. Like even if you want, a lot of people have AI to answer questions stuff. They want to talk to someone on the phone. They don't want to deal with the AI phone answerer. So there'll always be things like that, and people will pay a premium for that.
And kind of a follow-up on the duplication question. This person asks, can you also use Copyscape as a first pass or copy the text into Google and see if it's online somewhere?
All right. So if you're looking for like SEO purposes, certainly you can use Copyscape on it and see what's there. Google certainly is fine too. If you put it, the issue with Google, sometimes it doesn't. If you put too big a chunk in, it might not grab the whole thing. Another way to do it is just grab it, see what comes back first, and say rewrite it. If it's rewriting it twice, it's unlikely to be. I don't see it grabbing something from the web the first time, then you ask it to rewrite it and somehow matching another web page. I think that part would probably be pretty safe. But Copyscape is fine for stuff, and I think putting Google's fine for stuff. I think both those are okay. The bigger issue, if this is an SEO thing, I'll just say this. You go watch my content video thing a long time ago. It's not just important that you have the text be different with the rank in Google. You really need to add something else to make it more different, right? You need to show your expertise in some way. Because there's a lot here. Top 10 things to do after a car accident. Well, damn it, there's like 100 people wrote that page, right? Even they're all worded differently. So always bring in some legal expertise, some real, legalese almost. It can be lower on the page. It doesn't have to be there. But you've got to do something so that when Google's trying to come up with their 10 results, they're trying to pick one that's different. And that way you can be different. So make your page a little bit longer sometimes. Add a little bit of legalese, even if your top part is consumer-oriented. I mean, most consumers just can read a paragraph and call you anyways, or not reading the whole thing. But do that. If you think you could just rewrite stuff and rank, that Google will see the similarity with other stuff and you'll be discounted out. Those days are done. You really need to spend some time and really add some more additional legal content to show your legal expertise. Cite a code section, cite a case. Just do a little bit more extra for it, and then you'll be fine.
Thank you. Our next question is, will websites in the future be able to auto-generate legal content? Would this create a problem of bloating the web because there'd be so many versions of the same information?
I think AI is already being used for content generation every place. And there's been some, certainly some SEO folks have done it. And the AI content, if it's well written, seems to do great. It doesn't have any issues at all. Automating the AI stuff, it's possible. I would say the same thing though. If you have the same sort of basic content on 100 different websites, it's basically the same, premises liability page or dram shop liability page. It's all the same. Google's not going to rank them all. And realistically, if you're not ranked in Google, it doesn't matter too much if you have it on your site. So it's, the same thing. You need to always try to figure out how to make yours better. See what ranks to make your page better and add some more legal stuff and things like that. If you think you could just do it with AI, I think AI is very good for getting your initial draft out. I think it's a very good idea for getting ideas how to improve your page. Again, I also did a marketing AI one. Go look at the car accident section about this Denver car accident page. Do it like that and then go through and fix it, right? And we have AI right now that writes pages for folks for free right now. We just break in the paragraphs, and most of the time people take out the disclaimer. None of us they're supposed to. And then they can put it to their site. And it's decent. It's okay content, but we got to know what prompts they ask and questions they ask. So we get a little bit of extra stuff in there. Don't just say, hey, write me a I don't know, Birmingham, Alabama, nursing home page. This could be not that great. But if you break into sections and you sort of play with the prompts, it could be helpful. It's fine to use though. It's just got to like anything else, you got to double check it.
Our next question is, what happens to documents that I upload to OpenAI like ChatGPT? Is it not a part of their database or does it stay with them forever?
It depends. You need to check their privacy policy on it. I believe if you got the paid stuff, it's not included, right? So that part, they do keep it private. But you better double check what you opted in or opted out of. There's settings and things like that. I would not be overly worried about things for the most part on it. I don't think that, that they're really pulling in exact copies of documents too often, but it's possible. So if you're at all concerned, you just better double check your settings and what you agreed to. And I'm certain that if you use the free versions, I believe they're taking everything, including all your prompts for feedback and everything like that. You've almost got to pay the $25 a month or sign up for the API service at a paid level to protect your privacy. It's, not a lot of privacy in the free rules for LLMs.
That's fine. I think we have time for one more question, and then we'll wrap up. So the next question we have are, how can I ensure client confidentiality and data security? So kind of branching off our previous question, when I am using the legal tech solutions, maybe aside from just reading the privacy policy.
Well, I mean, the main thing is just it's like any other service. Like if you use Dropbox for documents, you use, different hosted services. You use Westlaw, right? Westlaw, you're doing searches. People could see those searches if they want to. Put a document up to get analyzed by Thomson Reuters, and when it comes back. So it's the same thing. You got to have they'll understand what the policy is in particular. I will say that there are instances where some of these smaller startup companies might say they're being private, but not being private. So you might want to look at the reputation of the company and see what people say. I'm not worried about the big three that I mentioned, VLEX, Westlaw, Thomson, and Lexis, because I think they've got pretty good privacy stuff. Although in the aggregate, they might use some information. Again, you probably have to study that a little bit. But I just got to double check it. But at the end of the day, you never really know. I mean, someone could be grabbing stuff and doing anything with it, or using it in ways that they feel is okay, even though you don't feel it's okay, right? I use your search queries in aggregate, but I don't use the stuff you upload, or, it could be something like that, which might not be, or the stuff we get back, we store and we map out, even though that's related to what you put out. You got to double check the fine print sometimes.